Part 1. You will hear a man phoning Community Learning Centre to get information about the sports photography course it offers. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6. Good morning, Community Learning Centre. What can I do for you?
Oh, hello. I'm calling about the sports photography course you offer. I learned about it from an advert somewhere in the newspaper.
OK. May I have your name, please?
It's Chris Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there anything in particular you would like to know?
Yes, I'm eager to improve my photography skills. You know, my son has just joined the school football team this semester and I want to keep a visual record of all these precious moments. But when I took shots, they were often too blurry. You see, I'm no expert, so I'd like to find out about the level of the course to see if it's suitable for me.
Well, this course is intended for beginners only, but there will be an advanced course for experienced photographers next semester.
That's good to know. I think this course works for me just fine. Do I have to go for an interview to register?
There's no need to do that. We have plenty of vacancies right now, so if you plan to register, I can sign you up over the phone.
Great. But before that, how much does it cost?
It was $45 last year for a single student. Luckily, this year we have more funding, so the price has gone down to $38.
Oh, good. So when will the next course start?
Let me check. Just a minute. It's Monday today, so there was a course that ended just last weekend. Then there's another one starting from April the 17th. But if you miss this one, the next one is from May the 1st.
That's too late. I'll just register for the next course then.
May I take your phone number?
Sure. It's 0713 9587 302.
OK, I've made a note of that. When you come to take the first lesson, please bring 2 photos that you've taken.
Is there any special requirements for the photos?
Yes, you reminded me. The weather of the 2 shots should be different.
Like one on a sunny day and another on a snowy day?
Yes, exactly. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
So apart from the photos, do I need to prepare anything else for the course?
Nothing more.
Do you have a syllabus for the course?
Sure, you can download it from our website. Just key in Community Learning Centre of Pinewood. You can also come over to the centre and get a copy.
I'll just download it online, but can you please introduce the course in detail? The course covers 2 days, right?
Yes. On Saturday morning, the instructor will explain all the basics of amateur and professional sports photography and the differences between them, followed by instructions on the use of specific equipment for various sports, like long lenses and monopods for shooting football matches.
That's exactly what I need to know. What about the rest of the course?
On Saturday afternoon, there is normally a workshop on the technical side of things. For the photos that your classmates have brought, you'll have to work together to decide the best position to take these shots.
Oh, that's interesting.
On Sunday, there's a workshop taking place in a computer-equipped room where you'll learn to edit different shots.
That sounds challenging.
Indeed it is. There is also a section on some tricks to sell them.
To magazines and newspapers, you mean?
Yes, mostly to the publishing industry.
I'd love to.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
To part 1.
Part 2. You'll hear an HR representative of Earn and Learn giving some information about her company. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Welcome to all of you. Can everybody see and hear me? Good. I'm Sarah Connor, an HR representative of Earn and Learn. I have been asked today to talk to you about our company. So for those of you who don't know very much about the company, let me start by giving you some basic information about it. Earn and Learn started nearly 20 years ago. It is not a charity but a for-profit company that enables promising entrepreneurs to make money while traveling. During the past 10 years, it has grown rapidly and has gained great influence in most countries of the world. We have a partnership with the school and take a large number of recent graduates from the business school. So if you are a recent graduate, I'd say you can consider applying to our company. Before your application, you might be curious about what sort of places you could go to. There are 4 main locations, but you also have the freedom to submit a different location, and if they can make the necessary arrangements, you can go. The first country, Earn and Learn. And Learn established locations was the US, where you may choose from multiple locations as long as you can commit to their more rigid schedule of August to December. Also, you could do the Australia internship. That one is really cool. You work at a wildlife shelter and learn about the business practices of nonprofit organizations. You do have to be willing to commit 8 months for that one, though. Perhaps that's a long time to be so far away, but I would say it is really an amazing opportunity. I don't know whether some of you are in decent physical shape. If so, the South Africa internship is another exciting one. You learn a lot about sustainable farming, but you would be doing some of the manual labor involved in maintaining a farm. Indeed, it's hard work, but I think you would definitely be able to do it. It may be wise to wait until after their summer is over, so it's not so terribly hot. In addition, there is a most recently established location in India. This one gives you more of a study abroad feel, given that they arrange a host family for you to stay with. In the other locations, you live in an apartment with other interns, so this is definitely a unique experience.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Regardless of where you go, at the end of the program, you get a global traveling certificate as long as you can explain your experience. You can provide a written log of what you did. I recommend writing journal or blog entries about what you do every day or a weekly summary of each day. Of course, you don't have to write up a formal report or anything like that, and you need to apply for it once you prepare to return. Some students may want to know whether this is a paid internship. Actually, you have to pay for the flight there yourself, but you have the opportunity to create your own small business, which could earn you money if it's successful, so basically, you pay for it all up front. But when you're there, you can find ways to make money. That is to say, you pay for 2/3 of the cost up front as a deposit and then give the final installment 1 month prior to your return. Finally, I have to remind you that you need a health check before you go to make sure you're not going to spread any communicable diseases. In addition, before you go, you don't have to attend any meetings or workshops. You'll meet everyone you'll be working with once you get there. Okay, well, that's all I've time for today. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Part 3. First, you have some time to look at questions
Until recently, we knew almost nothing about how important bees are in maintaining natural diversity. Now we know more about them. We know, for example, that bees fall into 2 categories: wild bees and domesticated honeybees. A main reason for the domestication of bees has always been the production of honey and beeswax. We also know that honeybees are the dominant pollinators. In addition to bees, wasps, moths, butterflies, flies and beetles, as many as 1,500 species of bird and mammals serve as pollinators. Many crops of commercial importance, such as almond, cherry, avocado pear, watermelon, cucumber, rely on pollination by insects. And of these insects, bees are by far the most important. Animals and insects provide pollination services for over 3/4 of the stable crop plants, and for 80% of all flowering plants in the world. The economic value of animal pollinators to world agriculture has been estimated to be $200 billion per year. Pollination is one of nature's services to farmers, so think about this. If you eliminated the pollinators, it would take the food right out of our mouths. We biologists never imagined we'd see the day when wild plants or crops suffered from pollinator scarcity. But, unfortunately, that day has come. In fact, farmers in Mexico and the US are suffering the worst pollinator crisis in history. So, what happened? Any ideas? Alicia?
It is, because of natural enemies? I read something about a kind of parasite that's killed lots of bees.
It's true. An outbreak of parasitic mites has caused a steep decline in North American populations of honeybees. But parasites aren't the only factor.
What about the pesticides used on farms? All those chemicals must have an effect.
Most definitely, yes. Pesticides are a major factor. Both wild and domesticated bees are in serious trouble because of pesticides. In California, farm chemicals are killing around 10% of all the honeybee colonies. Agriculture in general is part of the problem.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions
Another example is the monarch butterfly. Millions of monarchs from all over the US and southern Canada fly south every year in late summer. The monarch is the only butterfly that returns to a specific site year after year. Unfortunately, the herbicides used in the milkweed in the Great Plains are taking a toll on monarchs, and fewer of them are reaching their winter grounds in Mexico. In a recent field study at Cornell University in the US, it was found that monarch butterfly caterpillars eating corn-toxic pollen blown onto milkweed plants near cornfields had suffered significant adverse effects, leading to death of nearly 20% of the caterpillars.
Wow, 20%! That's so tragic.
And it's more than that. There are over 1,500 species of butterflies in the Indian subcontinent, but their population is dwindling because of environmental changes. Many man-made environmental changes like deforestation, extension of farming, and unrestricted urbanization are threatening some species of butterflies to extinction by destruction or disturbance of their larval as well as adult food plants, feeding grounds and shelters. Many of the most spectacular and endangered species have various levels of protection under local legislation. However, there is a major trade in the spectacular tropical species for incorporation in ornaments and souvenirs. The international demand for insects is greater than most people realize.
Yes, indeed. I once read an article about another important pollinator, the long-nosed bat. These amazing animals feed on cactus flowers, but they are having a tough time too. Some desert ranchers mistake them for vampire bats, and they've tried to poison them or dynamite the caves where they roost.
Yes, we must recognize that pollination is not a free service, and that investment and stewardship are required to protect and sustain it. So what can be done about this situation?
Well, wildlife farming, based on sustainable exploiting wild creatures, can help to save endangered species like butterflies and their habitats. Besides, gardeners, orchard growers, farmers, and urban dwellers can switch to more pollinator-friendly organic methods of cultivation to reduce wildlife exposures to insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides.
That's right. Actually, the focus on beekeeping needs to change from conventional honey production to crop pollination. That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Part 4, you will hear a lecture about the situation of wild animals, especially wild boar. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning. My name's Jim Robinson, and today we're going to look at the control of wild animals, specifically wild boar. Now, boar have been natural inhabitants of Western Europe for thousands of years, but in recent years there has been a surge in boar activity that poses real threat. Boars are not currently on the protected animals list, which is perhaps why there has been a spike in their breeding activity. Boars are an indigenous species and are particularly plentiful in rural France and the Bavarian uplands of Germany. Boar hunting is a European tradition that goes back to Roman times and became particularly popular among courtiers during the Middle Ages. Even during the 20th century, boar hunting was seen as an integral part of rural life. The decline in boar hunting has obviously led to a rise in the boar populations of Europe, and the situation has reached a critical point, with boar posing a critical threat to the environment. Proponents of boar hunting cite this factor as a major reason why boar populations should be contained. Boar also pose a threat to humans too, with countless reports of people being injured during boar attacks. The origins of the wild boar have roots in Germanic, and this perhaps explains their prevalence in Germany. The problems with the boar population. Germany have ramifications for the rest of Europe as boar packs migrate towards Central and Eastern Europe. One of the main issues that is of great concern is the transmission of diseases that infect other species. Dairy farmers in France are particularly concerned, as many of them have seen their herds depleted by infections. The methods for containing boar populations have been looked at in great detail, and numerous options are available. One is to encourage more boar hunting in wild regions such as mountains and forests. Hunters would be given licenses to hunt either for food or sport. Of course, boar do pose a threat to human life, so this possibility must be looked at with caution. One method that must be ruled out is poison, as legislation has been introduced prohibiting this. Such methods were tried with rabbits in the 1960s, and this had a disastrous impact on the food chain. The introduction of natural predators into the ecosystem is also an option that can't be considered. The only known predators of boar in the world are wild cats like lions and tigers. Obviously, there's no way such animals can be allowed to roam the mountains and forests of Europe. Given the threat that boars pose to humans, it is imperative that forest-dwelling boar are kept well away from people and cities. This is absolutely essential, as human safety must be the main priority of policymakers. By the 11th century, boars in several European countries were becoming increasingly rare. In Great Britain, controls attempted to reintroduce boars in the New Forest area of the country. Yet the entire population was almost wiped out during the battles of the English Civil War, when roaming soldiers hunted them for food. During the 1980s, wild boar rearing was encouraged and boar populations began to rise again. By the 1990s, there was a huge rise in the number of boar across England. Due in large part to the species no longer forced to live in captivity, many boar have broken free from farms across England and are breeding at a rapid rate. Aside from their environmental threat, boars also pose a problem for farmers growing crops and vegetables. Other species, such as red deer, are a threat to farm produce like grain and potatoes. But boars certainly present the most serious risk. The damage done to the farming industry is estimated to cost millions of pounds, and insurance payments as a result of this have spiked in the last decade. Red deer are predominantly confined to forest areas, and it is unusual to see them outside their habitats during the summer months. However, as the weather gets colder, they can be seen looking for food around local villages and fields. Red deer have their origins in Asia and are ruminant species, which means they have a stomach that consists of 4 compartments, much like cows. They are slaughtered for food, and their meat is sold as venison and is increasingly popular among consumers. There are 9 subspecies of red deer, with 3 of them on the endangered species list. The deer population doesn't pose the same threat as the boar population, but it certainly needs to be addressed. Forest areas are their main habitats, and they are now breeding at a much higher rate than in previous years. Of course, deer are an important part of the food chain and are an important part of the hunting traditions of the UK, so it is important that their population is kept stable for this reason. Though the real concern is the problems that deer present for farmers who have seen their crops suffer in devastating ways. Protection needs to be offered, and many farmers report building large perimeter fences around their fields to keep deer out, which costs them a huge amount of money. Government funding is so far inadequate to offer the protection farmers need, but ways are being looked at to provide subsidies through other means.
That's the end of part 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.